Hey everyone, Jason Shepard here, MzeroA.com. So excited to have you all on the live stream this evening. Appreciate you all taking time out of your busy evening to chat with us, to be with us, to learn more about the secret to perfect landings and really what it means to have a great landing each and every time. That is what we're really after this evening. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into this. For those of you who are new, maybe don't know much about myself, much about our team here at MzeroA.com, I'll just give you just a real quick rundown. So I was named AOPA's Outstanding Flight Instructor 2014, 2015, 2016, nearly 10,000 hours of dual given time. And through our online ground school, we help over 1,200 pilots per month with their written knowledge tests and with their check rides. That online ground school I mentioned is a complete private instrument and commercial pilot online ground school, prepping you, like I said, for the written, for the check ride, and most importantly, making you a safe real-world pilot. Up to 8 books now. Some of them you can see pictured there, a few of them. I'm going to share with you at the end how I'm giving all these books away for free as well. So something else very exciting. Let's talk for a moment now a little bit about how this works. So you're watching this live here on Facebook. If you like what I'm saying, go ahead and hit the thumbs up, hit the heart. Let's do a test on that real quick. You hit the thumbs up, you hit the heart, you'll see all those go across the screen right there, as you can see that. There they go. Perfect. Good job. So if you see that, that's like, can we call it like applause? I don't know. That way I feel like you understand what I'm talking about here. So you can see all of that. Now I can, when you see me looking over this way, it's because I'm looking at your comments. So right now, Wes from Ohio. Hey Wes, I see Jonathan in Fort Lauderdale. Prescott is Vex. Raphael, good to see you. Awesome. Good to see you. Hey Robbie, good to see you. Dennis, George, all you guys coming in here. I can see all your comments over there. Now, not only I can see those comments, but I have Matt sitting over here taking questions. I've got Billy and Allie sitting over here taking questions. Hunter's back home taking questions. Larry, Tom, Ashley, all back home taking questions as well. So do say hi to the MzeroA.com team when you see them in there, and know that when I'm looking this way, I'm not paying attention to you. If anything, I am paying attention to you. Hey, there's my buddy Larry. Larry, excited to see you at Sun and Fun. Josh, Philip, Guy, Larry, good to see you all. Josh, good to see you all. So that's my way of being able to communicate with you. So that's a little bit about how this works. This is being recorded too. It'll go on Facebook, YouTube, and on the MzeroA.com page as soon as we're done with all of that. So our topic tonight is something we all strive for. It's the perfect landing. What is the secret to perfect landings? And let me start by asking you all a question here. What makes a great landing? What makes a great landing? And again, type in your Facebook comment so I can see it over here. What makes a great landing? How do you know when you've had a great landing, let's say? That's what we're looking for here. Let's see. I see a bunch of hellos. Hey, Lisa, good to see you on there. Hey, Meryl, good to see you. Larry says, able to reuse the airplane. That's certainly a positive, isn't it, here? Jack says, a perfect pattern. Jack, I think you've seen some MzeroA.com videos before, haven't you, here? Set up in the pattern. Great, Brian, to reuse the airplane again. Kevin says, stable all the way down. Absolutely here. Let me see. No squeaks on the wheel, says Kendall. Mike, I like this one. Center line, light on the runway. Ken says he made it. He didn't die. I get it. I like it. Smooth as glass. Do it again, says Ron. Darren says grease it. Smooth down early on the runway, says Philip. John, stable approach. Absolutely. These are all things that make great landings. Let me ask you another question now. What makes landing so difficult? You just told me all the things that make a great landing. I want it to be smooth. I want to be on center line. I want to be able to reuse the airplane again. I get it. But what makes then landings so difficult? If you can answer that question for me. If I just told you this is what we need to do, why are landings so difficult? And not just difficult for student pilots. They're difficult all the way through. My instrument guys, my commercial guys, I know CFIs that still struggle with landings. crosswind landings in particular. Paula says everything happens in a short period of time. Tim says wind. Russ says the approach. Absolutely, absolutely. These are all things. Jeff says wind. Wind's going to be a big thing we're going to talk about tonight. So what you're telling me is we know what it takes to have a perfect landing or a great landing. But what's difficult is all these different variables. Just like Tim. Tim, perfect sentence. Conditions are always changing. Darren, adjusting the weight and balance, controlling the wind, all these things, you're right, they make it so difficult. So let me share with you now a quick story about early on in my flight training. I was a low-time student pilot, and I was flying a Cherokee 140 at the time. And we were doing some pattern work, and I'm 16 years old at this time, so put yourself in that mindset. It's ironic that we run an online ground school right now, because back when I was 16 years old, I wasn't thinking about ground school. All I wanted to do was fly that airplane. I knew I was getting close to solo because my instructor had told me. And finally, on one of our lessons, she said to me, Jason, if you can land on this dinky little runway, that runway, by the way, is 3,000 feet long by 50 feet wide, which isn't bad, but when you look at it, when you've got 10 hours or so, and you look at a runway of that length, it's a little bit intimidating. She said, Jason, if you could put it down on this little runway, I'll solo you. And of course, again, that 16-year-old kid, imagine that. I can do this. I am committed. I'm going to make this a great landing, and I'm going to solo right after it. So here we are in the Cherokee 140. We fly our traffic pattern, and we're coming in. And again, you know how a narrow runway can be so intimidating sometimes. And we're coming in, and I am just so far to the left of center, and then I'm far to the right to center. Have you ever been doing one of these S turns out there on final? And we're just oscillating back and forth and back and forth. And then finally we're coming in, and we're just about ready to touch down. And I am just so far left of that runway. My instructor looks at me and says, Jason, what are you going to do? And I knew the right answer. I knew the right answer was go around, but I didn't want to go around because remember, she just said to me that if you can land this on this tiny little runway, I'll solo you. That was right. I wanted that, right? So, but I am so far left of this runway, I said, you know what? I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to go around. So we're sitting there, and this is a Cherokee 140 now, keep in mind. I go, and what should the procedure be, right? Give it full power, baby out the flaps. I didn't do that. The very first thing I did is I reached down for that flat bar right there, and I took out all the flaps at once. If you've flown a Cherokee 140 before, you know what I'm talking about, where you take that emergency style brake, flaps. Power wasn't there yet. I took out all the flaps at once and then went to add power. What do you think happened when I took out all the flaps at once? Well, we came down and we hit the ground so hard. And not the runway. I'm talking the grass 100 feet right of the runway. When I tell that story, people say, man, you're lucky you didn't hit any lights or signs or anything. I said, lights and signs are close to the runway. I was 100 feet to the right of the runway. My first soft field landing, though, was uneventful for the most part. We impacted the ground so hard, my instructor took the controls. I didn't know a thing about soft field technique because I hadn't been in the books, I hadn't been studying. She pulls back on the yoke, pops us back up on the taxiway. The words she said to me, I cannot repeat here. But the one thing I can repeat that she did say, literally looked at me as I had my head down, but I could feel her staring at me and said, Jason, maybe you're not meant to be a pilot. And when someone says that to you, after a traumatic experience like that, you believe it. And I almost gave up. It was to the point where I can't do this. I don't want this anymore. This used to be my dream, but I just stink at it. This isn't for me. My landings are terrible. I make bad decisions. I can't be a pilot. That was the negative self-talk I had at the time. And I remember it was going home, and I had another lesson scheduled. My lesson where I was supposed to solo, but I wasn't going to solo. But I told everybody, I think I'm going to solo. So there's that awkward dynamic there. And I ended up canceling that lesson because I was sick. My mom knew I wasn't sick, and I remember my mom came to me and said, Jason, what's up? And I told her the story, and she said, this is your dream. This is your goal. You've got to hit those books. You've got to study more. and work at what you really want. So through that traumatic landing experience, I truly became a student of landings and studied and learned everything I could about landings, about what made great landings. Why was this landing better than the other when I feel like I didn't change anything, but something tiny did? And what I discovered from that moment, all the way up through becoming a flight instructor, to helping students deal with the same kind of difficult struggles I share with you now. And again, I share these stories with you because we all have stories. You look at me and say, man, Jason's this flight instructor, everything must have just been perfect. We all have these stumbling blocks. And through that research, though, I found that there's two things that held me back from making perfect landings. If you're taking notes, you're going to want to write this down, because I'm going to give you the first one right now. The first thing, and if you've been following us for any amount of time, you know this, but it's going to be great to hear it again, is this. A perfect landing starts with a perfect pattern. Let me say that again. A perfect landing starts with a perfect traffic pattern. I don't care if we're talking a rectangular traffic pattern, if we're talking the new circular pattern, it doesn't matter at this point right now, right? What matters is a perfect landing starts with a perfect traffic pattern. That means, follow along here closely, that means no trapezoids. You know what I mean? You see that on your screen there, these trapezoid style patterns. It means no shortcuts. We can't just, oh, I'll fly this here, I think I'll just enter on the base this time. It doesn't matter. We can't have any shortcuts. Think of it like this. For those of you that are into sports, imagine it like this. Like a golfer who lines up each putt. Each putt, they approach the ball in the same way. Like a basketball player shooting a free throw. They approach the line. They dribble the ball 3 times, spin it once, whatever it may be, it's the same routine every time. I like the golf analogy a little bit better though, because their goal is to make each putt seem the same each and every time. The grip is the same. The stance is the same. But what changes is the environment. What's the wind doing? Where the lie is at? How the green is reading and running that day. You see, that's how landings are. Every landing is going to change. The wind is always going to be different. Weight and balance is always going to be different. ATC is going to tell you to enter on a 2-mile left base. But we have to work to make it as close to that perfect pattern or the same pattern each and every time. Meaning the goal is to roll out on final in the same spot no matter where the airport each and every time. You see, how can you expect to have a perfect landing when your approach is always different? When you're just doing pattern work, and one time you're high, the next time you're low, and next time you're fast, next time you're slow, you're all over the place. Every landing is going to look different. You never get a chance to have that solid repetition over and over of seeing the same type of landing, right? The secret to perfect landings, it starts with a perfect pattern. I'm going to share with you here just this image you see on your screen here. The rectangular course, that rectangular traffic pattern. I know we're talking about some really neat things with a circular pattern, and we'll be talking about that more in later months, but I want you to do this with me here. I want you to chair fly this with me in your head. So I'm literally going to sit down real quick, and I want you to chair fly this with me. Now again, geez, chair flying is one of the most powerful things you can do in aviation. If it's the winter months right now, you're not flying as much as you want to, chair flying is such a great asset. I'm going to share with you how I do it. So you're sitting down, preferably in your big, comfy, lazy boy chair, and you sit down, and we want to work through everything. So let's work through that takeoff here together first. So we're sitting down. I typically fly in the right seat. So we're sitting there. We roll out onto the runway. I confirm, yes, this is runway 36. I look at my magnetic compass, it's 36. My head indicator is 36. I see 36 outside. My heels hit the floor. My toes move to the bottom of those pedals. I smoothly apply full power. As I apply full power, I'm looking at my airspeed indicator, verify airspeed's alive. I come across to my engine instruments, verify engine instruments green. As soon as that powers go in, while I'm doing those checks simultaneously, I'm getting a strong stronger right foot, just a little bit, to compensate for some of that left turning tendency, that torque, that P factor that wants to pull us over to the left. We oftentimes forget that. I want to hold center line on through. I'm rolling down the runway. My eyes are glancing from outside to my airspeed, outside to my airspeed, watching my airspeed build. I see rotation speed coming. I feel the controls getting lighter and it's time to fly. We go ahead, we rotate. We climb straight on out. I'm doing my best to hold that same 360, that north heading, but I'm still occasionally going to, if I have a back window, I'm going to want to glance back and make sure, yes, I'm still flying that runway straight out. Another way to do that, if you're on a wide enough runway, sometimes it's just a quick glance down. Do I not see any runway, but I can see runway over here? I want to see about the same amount on either side there, right? So I'm flying that runway on out because the wind could be pushing me. I can hold 360 all I want, but if the wind's pushing me, my pattern is already screwed up and I'm just on the upwind and I'm getting pushed to the left. I'm going to have a very short crosswind and this weird kind of downwind is going to continue to push me away if I don't fix it. I'm flying on my upwind, and then when I get 300 feet from traffic pattern altitude, I do two things. I turn and talk. Let me say this again. I'm on the upwind. I'm climbing out. When I get 300 feet from traffic pattern altitude, I turn and talk. So let's say traffic pattern altitude is 1,000 feet to make it easy. All right, so I'm coming up at 700 feet. I'm going to turn, and Ocala's towered, but for this sake, let's say it's nighttime or whatever it is. It's not open today, so I can make regular traffic calls. I turn and I talk. Ocala traffic, 7159 Quebec, turning left crosswind, runway 36 Ocala. The reason I turn and talk is very simple. First off, it's procedural, so I can do it. There's nothing wrong with multitasking in the cockpit, right? We're told we have to multitask. But truth be told, it's because we're easier to spot. It's much easier to spot a turning aircraft, right? If I call up and say I'm turning crosswind, other traffic knows exactly where in the traffic pattern that is. I'm turning downwind, they know exactly where to look. Whereas if I say I'm downwind, that's a big chunk of airspace for them to scan for traffic. If I say I'm turning downwind, they can look at the crosswind to downwind hinge in virtual space where it should be and actually see it there, right? So I teach to turn and talk. On my crosswind, same thing. On my crosswind is so important too because as I turn, obviously I want to hold 90 degrees off my heading here, but I want to watch what the wind's doing to me. I want to make sure I'm not over banking. I want to really look back at that runway and make sure I'm flying a true 90-degree angle off of it in this case. Then when I get 50 feet from traffic pattern altitude, I do turn and talk again. Again, Ocala traffic, Skyhawk 7159 Quebec's turning left downwind, runway 36 at Ocala. And then as I'm turning, talking, I can add another T, turn, talk, and throttle to the equation because I have to remember to bring that throttle back. It's so easy to blow right on through the downwind. You get so focused on this turn, so engrossed in your conversation of talking on the CTAF frequency that you're coming around and you blow right on through that altitude. You have momentum working for you. Plus you're turning to a tail. There's going to be a natural tendency to balloon through that altitude. As you're doing it, you need to bring that power back to that cruise setting because really 50 feet coming up, you've got momentum with you. You need to be making just about a level turn and then make that adjustment accordingly. You see, you have to bring that throttle back because you already have a tailwind. On the downwind, we talk about this so much, and note takers write this down again too, that airspeed is king. You already have a tailwind. You don't need all that power in there. You are going to be hauling butt on that downwind. And one thing I teach when I say airspeed is king, you want to shoot for specific airspeeds. For us, it's like 90 on downwind. We're talking 172 speeds, right? 90 on downwind, 80 on base, 75 on final, 70 on short final, 65 over the numbers, whatever it may be, and slowing as we go. That's what we're looking for, to nail those airspeeds down. On the downwind, it's so easy to simply just let the airplane get away from you early on when you've got all that tailwind pushing you. Now, It may not be a tailwind though. You may have to watch your ground track as well. It may actually end up being a crosswind in this case. Let's pull this image up on your screen here real quick so you can see it now. What if, and this is, again, this is showing, follow along with my cursor here once I find my cursor. There we go. I'll bring it on over. There we go. If you can see that there it is in the middle of the screen there for you. It's a little tough to see. But look at this. This is showing the gray area, showing with the wind correction, right? And this is just normal downwind to base, showing the crab angle. Many people forget to crab on base, but you may have to crab on downwind, won't you? Right? If you have a crosswind, you could be creeping in on that runway. You could be creeping away, being blown away or blown into that runway. We want to make sure we're flying and maintaining that same distance all the way around on that traffic pattern. It's going to be so important that we do that. On downwind now, it's a long stretch without any radio calls. Sometimes it's busy. I'll make another radio call that I'm midfield or I'll beam the numbers just to have another conversation there if there's 2 or 3 people in the pattern, because the downwind could be a minute 30 without making a radio call sometimes. If it's busy, everyone needs to know where you're at. Not excessive, but straight and to the point with it. Now, with that being said, we're still chair flying together here now. We want to fly to our abeam point. Here's what I mean. Your abeam point is simply wherever you want to touch down. If it's the runway numbers, you fly. We're making left traffic, right? We're making left traffic. I fly to my abeam point. When that is 90 degrees off my shoulder here, I'm abeam my touchdown point. The number's 3-6, let's say. Abeam my touchdown point. I execute my procedure and I start that descent. The procedure for me and my airplane is this. Carb heat, power back, 10 degrees of flaps. It's going to be different in every airplane. But for me, in my 1972 Cessna 172 Lima, carb heat, power back, 10 degrees of flaps in that order. And you have to make sure you've started the descent, because who on this knows what happens when you add flaps in sometimes, especially when you're at a faster airspeed, especially if you were to add flaps first. This is why it's carb heat, power, flaps are last. If you added flaps first and even adding flaps last, what do we have a tendency to do sometimes, right? We have a tendency, you guys are absolutely right, we have a tendency to kind of balloon up a little bit. So here you are abeam your point now where you're supposed to be starting that descent, and instead you've ballooned up 100, 150, 200 feet. And we've just thrown that idea of a perfect traffic pattern out the window. Just like that. We have to fly that perfect traffic pattern. We have to make sure we've started that descent. We can now trim for an airspeed. Find out what your airspeed is for you in your airplane. I gave you the example of 90, 80, 70. 90 on downwind, 80 on base, 70 on final. Find out what works best for you and in your airplane. Now, we've started this descent. We've trimmed for our airspeed. We've got our 90. We're even slow and flirting with 85-ish, somewhere in that range right now as we're coming on down. And now, at our 45-degree point, meaning I was just a beam, now that point's going to drift back this way, right? When it's 45 degrees back off my shoulder is when I typically want to turn my base. Once that point gets back over there is when I want to turn my base. I turn my base, I turn and talk, I bring the throttle back. This is a common misconception. Sometimes we get confused that the only time I bring the power back is carb heat, power back, 10 degrees of flaps. I don't touch the throttle till final. On downwind, I'm adjusting that throttle. It could be more, it could be less. It depends. Also, as I turn base, and after I turn base in particular, I can work in more flaps. Now, I have 2 asterisks there for 2 reasons here. The first is if needed. Like I said, you could be too high. You could be too low. It just depends. Are more flaps needed? The second one here is never in a turn. I don't teach using flaps in a turn. I know some places do it, and they do it well, and they have great success rates. I'm not going to debate that, okay? I don't teach flaps in a turn. I'll just give you my rationale. If you want to debate it, we can debate it later. But I look at it like this. I'm low, I'm slow. the aerodynamics of a turn say one wing is technically producing a greater horizontal and vertical component of lift than the other, which means if I add flaps in that turn, I'm having asymmetric drag that I'm adding to it. One flap, one wing is producing more drag than the other, causing a yawing motion. As I mentioned, I'm low and slow. What are the ingredients for a stall spin scenario? I've got 3 of them right there, right? If I don't keep that nose coming down. But what's the tendency when you add flaps? And like we just said, the tendency for the nose to come up. If you're not watching for it, I'm just telling you it could be dangerous. Has it happened before? Yeah, it's happened before. That's how we have this data. Can it be done? Sure, it can be done if it's done safely. I just don't teach flaps in a turn, especially to my low-time pilots. So we're on base now. We're looking out, we're watching that runway. It is so important as we're watching this runway out here that we know when to turn final. You'll read NTSB report after NTSB report. If you watched 2 days ago, Tuesday night's in-flight emergencies, you saw all the accidents on landing, right? They all came down to loss of control. A big portion of that loss of control accident was someone base to final, looking, turning, oh, you know what, I overshot final, let me just crank it around a little more, and they end up just cranking it too much and end up low, slow, in a very steep turn with flaps, everything else, and find themselves looking down at the ground in a stall spin scenario, that loss of control. Did you know you can go around on the downwind? Did you know you can do a go around on base? You can go around at any point in that traffic pattern. If you think you're going to blow through final, go around. Don't try to crank around and save it. There's no chance to be a hero and save a bad landing, because a bad approach leads to a bad landing. You'll see it time and time again. Think back to the landings where you tried to save it, or where ATC vectored you and you're number 4 for landing, you're all over the place. You think back to those are some of your not best landings, right? But let's get back to our chair flying here. We're on final now. And when we're on final, I like to ask myself a question. Really, back on base, I like to ask myself this question as well. Ask yourself, am I too high, am I too low, or am I right on glide path? Am I too high, am I too low, or am I right on glide path? And make those adjustments. And how you can tell that is simply by picking a point on the runway. Pick a point on that runway and see what is it doing on my windshield. Look at this image on your screen here with me. If we use those numbers 3, 6 here, and those numbers 3, 6 started tracking up our windshield, what would that mean? We're too low. What if those numbers 3, 6 started tracking down here underneath the nose where we could no longer see them? What does that mean? I'm too high, right? By picking a point on that runway. I think we've done a video like this too before where John's overlaid a circle on a point and you've seen how we work to fly that circle on down. I used to do this with a charcoal pencil. In my Cessna 150, I'd draw a big circle on the windshield and say, put the numbers 3, 6 in that circle and fly it all the way on down. And it would work. So we said there were 2 things I found that made a perfect landing. The first one was simply have a perfect traffic pattern. A perfect landing starts with a perfect traffic pattern, we said, right? The next thing is this. And really, the most important step here is this. It's a change in vocabulary. I'm asking you, this is going to sound crazy. And I can see some of the comments already that you're going to think I'm crazy, but hear me out on this. Ditch the word flare from your vocabulary. Or if you don't want to get rid of the word flare, change what the word flare means to you. Because here's what the word flare means to a brand spanking new student pilot when they hear it. When they hear the word flare, as an instructor, you're telling them this, they think of a 777 coming into land that flares. They think of the space shuttle back in its heyday when it would come into land. It flares. A Cessna 172 doesn't flare when it lands. You'll strike the tail if you end up flaring when you try to land, right? A Cessna 172, I'm not saying we have a 3-point landing. Yes, our mains certainly touch down before the nose, but it's quick, right? Unless we're doing soft field technique. Replace the word flare instead with the word transition. Transition. And what do we transition to? we transition effectively to slow flight down the runway. One of my best tips if you're struggling with landings is to do slow flight down the runway. And we did a video very recently on this slow flight down the runway, just 4 minutes long. I want to play it for you here real quick, and I'll be quiet just so you can listen to it and really see what it looks like, what it feels like to do a slow flight down the runway. Hey everyone, Jason Shepard here, MzeroA.com. We're at the Williston Airport. We're number 2 for landing on the downwind here coming in. And I'm going to share with you guys one of my best landing tips, and that is slow flight down the runway. If you ever find the runway sneaking up on you too quick, you think, man, we hit the ground way too soon. Chances are you're not taking your eyes down the runway soon enough. Slow flight down the runway would help with that. If you find yourself struggling to land on center line, learning how to control the airplane in slow flight, especially down the runway, can help greatly with that. And I'm going to chat and kind of talk you through that here in just a bit. We're going to beam our touchdown point and bring my CARB heat back, power back, 10 degrees of flaps. I'm treating it just like I would a normal landing in this case.
Hotel Foxtrot on runway 23, getting off Delta Alpha. What?
Williston traffic, Cessna is 9 to the northeast, inbound for landing runway 23, Williston traffic.
And Williston traffic, Skyhawk 7159 Quebec's turning left base, runway 23, low approach, Williston. And just like we would any other normal landing, we'll use flaps just like we would and everything else. And we're coming on in here. On base, next notch of flaps. And again, so often that we practice landings and we're in ground effect for such a split second. To be able to practice it and extend that out down the runway is so valuable. So we treat it like a normal landing until right before touchdown. We come in, we're just going to give it a little bit of power, and the goal is to hold it as close to the runway without touching it as possible. Williston traffic, Skyhawk 7159 Quebec's turning, final runway 23, low approach only, Williston.
Williston traffic, Skyhawk 1212, uniform checked in from fuel pump 223, run up via Alpha.
We're looking good, just coming on in, everything's set, before lane checklist, everything's all complete. Speeds are all looking good. Coming on in, eyes are looking at that number 23 right now as we keep it coming on in. Power's back to idle, I'm gliding this thing on in. Entering into ground effect about now. Transitioning and right about now, holding it, bleeding off some airspeed and giving it some power. Giving it some power, eyes down that runway, giving it some power. Holding it there, holding it there. Feel like, oop, don't want to touch, there we go, got it. Almost did there for a second. Hold it, look at my ailerons, how ineffective they really are here. Look at my rudder, I have so much control and authority there. See what it looks like holding center line here as we head down this runway. Feel what the controls are like. Burn this sight picture into your brain because this is what it's like right before you touch down. You just only get to experience it for a split second. Slow flight down the runway helps with that. I see the 1,000-foot marks, about 1,500 feet left to go, so I'm going around full power. Remember, I have all those flaps in there when you do a go around, so that noise is going to have a tendency to come up. So be ready to fight that, and I can bring my flaps up a hair, up a notch, and positive rate. Clear my any obstacles, flaps, up and out. Slow flight down the runway is going to help you greatly with your landings, I promise, with that sight picture, with that feel for landings. Get out, practice it with a flight instructor, and leave me a comment down below this video on MzeroA.com with how it worked out. Enjoy the rest of your day, and most importantly, remember, that a good pilot is always learning. Have a great day, guys. See ya.
One thing I hope you realize that really should stick out to you in that video is this phrase. As you transition the nose, so you transition your eyes down that runway as well. You heard me say it a few times in that video, that as that nose comes up, and again, we're not flaring, the nose does come up, the mains do touch beforehand, but we're transitioning to slow flight down the runway. If someone would have came to me in hour 2, 3, 4, 5, when I was first being introduced to slow flight, and I didn't like it, because this is back in the day slow flight, not today's ACS slow flight. This was back when we would hold it right at the stall. It was July in Florida. It was hot. I didn't want to be up there. I kind of feared stalling. And this Cherokee 140 with a Hershey bar wing, I didn't understand it. But if someone would have told me, Jason, we practice slow flight to get better at landings, because right before touchdown, you're effectively in a phase of slow flight, but it lasts like a snap. When you can do slow flight down the runway and extend that feeling, extend that sight picture on out, doing slow flight down the runway is the equivalent of doing 50 landings in the logbook, because you get to see that sight picture, feel what the rudder pedals feel like, feel what the ailerons feel like, and you saw it wasn't a lot. You saw how much I was working that yoke, because it took that much just to get the tiniest bit of movement out of the airplane. They're not as effective as you think. So as you transition the nose, transition your eyes down that runway. Have you ever found the ground, well, or the ground found you perhaps, a little bit too soon? You're like, oh, I didn't realize we're on the ground, and it kind of caught up on you? It's because you didn't take your eyes far enough down that runway. Anytime a student of mine has a bad landing, the first thing I ask them is, where were your eyes? And usually it's like, oh, right, that center line right there that just went past us, that's where they were looking. Right? We have to take our eyes down that runway. As we transition the nose, we transition our eyes down that runway. We work to bleed off that airspeed, and we work to let the airplane really and truly settle in. Let me summarize all this for you here. Then we're going to wrap this thing up, and we're going to go ahead and take your questions here in just a moment. Write this down if you haven't already. A perfect landing starts with a perfect traffic pattern. Ditch the word flare from your vocabulary, or just change how it's defined with you. And lastly, slow flight down the runway is the greatest tip I can offer you for doing that. Again, the equivalent of 50 landings in one pass. Now do it like I was talking about in the video. Find a nice long runway where you're allowed to do it, where you have time. Do it with an instructor, please, beforehand. But slow flight down the runway is going to help you immensely. Do it once, and then come back around and land the airplane and see what a game changer that sight picture is for you. If it worked for you, by the way, I mean, I see a lot of you already replying here, but if slow flight down the runway helped you, leave a comment, let everybody know, throw some likes, some hearts up there so everyone knows that slow flight down the runway is the real deal that can truly help you with your landings. I see a lot of you know a lot of this stuff too, so perhaps you've already seen it and read it, our book, The Secret to Perfect Landings. By the way, this entire month of January, I'm giving away all of our books to our online ground school members. Pass your private pilot check ride, pass your instrument pilot check ride, FAR aim, oh, I'm dropping stuff. FAR aim in plain English, in-flight emergencies, Secret of Perfect Landings. 8 books in total here, in addition to our in-flight emergencies video course. Those are free, $355 value to our online ground school members. If you need a great community of aviators, consider becoming a member of our #1 rated online ground school. We have crazy guarantees like pass your check ride or I'll pay for it. We do weekly workshop webinars every Monday night, just like you're seeing here. And it's a much smaller group, so we can be really just answer your questions, your concerns. I always say I'll answer any question from just getting started to buying an airplane and everything in between. That crazy guarantee, it's written and check ride prep as well. Yes, you're going to pass your written test with flying colors. Yes, you're going to pass your check ride with flying colors. But most importantly, we're out to make safe, real-world pilots. So visit groundschoolacademy.com. You can become a member during the month of January and get that bonus. If you're already a member, just be logged in and go to groundschoolacademy.com/books, plural, BOOKS. You can go there. You can download everything that way. But if you need help with your private pilot written test prep, check ride prep, instrument pilot, commercial pilot, it doesn't matter. CFI course and multi-engine course coming soon now. you have access to that. One membership gets you access to all three of those courses: private, instrument, and commercial. We are here for you, our online ground school members. If you're on, or if you're a former member, I saw James, I saw a few others, chime in and let these guys know how much the online ground school truly helped you succeed in your flight training dreams as well. We have a lot of graduates. We have a lot of current customers on here as well. So don't hesitate to reach out to those guys as well, because they're more than happy to be a living, flying testimonial for it as well. And yes, James L., it's good for the Pilots Inner Circle membership as well, that offer. Pilots Inner Circle membership is geared towards someone who's maybe in between certificates or just wants to live out that good pilot is always learning mantra. And you still get all the books. You get the webinars every Monday night and that community and that mentorship through it as well. So just some neat stuff there. Let's go ahead. Let's dive into it. Let's take some questions now. John, if you want to leave that slide up, a few people are asking about the URL again. groundschoolacademy.com, and then from there go and click enroll now, and you can learn more about the different packages, the different levels, or join today, whatever you want to click on, and you can read more about it there as well. This offer is good through January. After January, this offer goes away. The course will still be up. You can start anytime you want, you can stop anytime, you can cancel anytime you want, it doesn't matter. The average person, I know this question will come up, is how long does it take? I mean, our private pilot course usually gets knocked out in a month, month and a half, 2 months. If you make it your life, you can do it in a few weeks. But the regular person with a 9-to-5 job is our typical customer. It's a month and a half to 2 months to get it done. So if you're a gold member, you plan on spending $300 with us to get all that done, to get that benefit. But $300, and I'm telling you, there's $355 in all this value if you add it to the cart right now. So just really neat stuff. We do a great promotion every January. It's our big promotion for the year. Other than that, we don't do a lot of promotions. So this is our big one for the year. So do take advantage of that as well. But I'm going to sit down here for a bit and let's take some questions and anything you want to chat about. Obviously, landings is the topic tonight, but anything aviation related, I am just, I'm honored and more than happy to do it. Chris with a K, thank you for giving a great testimonial for the online ground school. Let me see. Hey, Clay, good to see you on again. I saw your email today. What do you teach as the key points for a go-around? Well, considering my first go-around was non-existent, I'm more than qualified to answer this question, right? Gosh, first off, knowing that a go-around is an option is such a great thing to have, because I find students just want to land that airplane. No one wants to practice go-arounds. It's not a sexy, fun thing to do. Everybody wants to land the airplane. No one wants to practice a go-around. But the first thing is get myself out of that situation. So for me, in my 1972-172 Lima, it's carb heat and power are basically simultaneous, and it's up and away from that situation. Typically, if it's an airplane that cut me off, I'm on final and they decide they're going to take off anyways, it's up and to the right. That way, you can look out the window and go, oh, there they are down there, they're still rolling, I need to get out of their way here, right? And I can keep eyes on that traffic that just cut me off, right? If it's just something as simple as, you know, I overshot final and I went around. Carb heat, full power. Worry about the flaps later when wings are level. Baby them out in increments, though. Please don't be like me in that old Cherokee 140 emergency brake style flaps and dump them all at once, because you'll sink like a rock. They have to be babied out in increments. So what I normally teach is flaps right to 20. You know, carb heat, full power. Get this thing flying. Get out of this bad situation first. Then flaps to 20. Coming up, positive rate of climb, or, you know, flaps up to 10, through 70, flaps up. Have a procedure for it for you. When I reach this airspeed, my flaps go to 10. When I can establish 0 or a positive rate of climb, my flaps come up and out. It has to be procedural. You see, there's so many procedures in aviation that allow you to sit down like this and chair fly them. It makes it nice. Let's see here. What's your best advice for easily pinpointing airports on cross countries? That comment kind of got buried, but I think I got the gist of it. I think it was Doug. Doug, show of hands. Instead of show of hands, let's do hit the like button if what I'm saying applies to you. I shared this last Tuesday on the in-flight emergencies one. You're a brand new student pilot. You're flying to a brand new airport on one of your solo cross countries, or maybe it's an airport you've been to, and everyone's landing 3-6. And you see 3-6, but you're going, is that N36 or is that N36? And you have no idea which end is 3-6, or maybe it was just difficult for you to even go out and spot that runway. Press the like button a few times if that's ever been you before. Look at all the likes coming in here. Absolutely. That's been so many of us before, right? Here's how I do it. First off, when spotting that airport, obviously altitude is your friend. I try not to start my descent down until I even see that airport to begin with. Overflying the field, assuming there's not like skydiving activity and that sort of stuff, is usually a good option to get a lay of the land. Do it nice and high and a nice turn from 2,000 feet above traffic pattern and look at the airport and see the lay of the land. But remember, when figuring out, as silly as it sounds, which end of the runway is which, you always land into the number. Allow me to explain. If you're looking at your heading indicator and it's 3-6, which we know is north, you always land into the number. So if north is over here, right, I always land into the number. That would mean I'm on basically a right base to land into that number, because when I'm on that runway, north is up, right? So if you can visualize it that way on the heading indicator, makes life a whole lot easier sometimes. Let's see here. Robert said, have I ever flight trained an RC pilot? No, Robert, we do a lot of work in the drone community right now. It's remotepilot101.com. We're actually the largest provider right now. There's been like 16,000 remote pilot tests taken, and we're more than half the market has used us to do that. Jeff, good question. He just said slips, question mark. Jeff, I'm going to take this one, assuming I know where you want to go with it. I like slips. I'm a fan of using slips. I think it's a great trick to have in your flight bag. I don't teach it early on to students. It's a much more advanced maneuver. The next follow-up question from either Jeff or somebody is going to be, what about with flaps extended? Well, does the airplane have a placard, or in the POH does it say, avoid slips with flaps extended? Then I don't do it. And here is really why. I have an airplane. I have a 172. I have a 172. John made this, so don't judge us on our modeling skills. John, the director back there, made this one. Think about it this way. We need to get more models like this, John. This is a good idea. Think about it this way. I'm coming to land right at you, right? I'm coming to land. I want to now slip, so I'm slipping towards you, right? I'm slipping this direction now. Now, what if where is that airflow, right? I'm getting more airflow on this side. This elevator back here is not getting a lot of airflow, right? Because the fuselage is obscure. Now, it's getting some that's coming over, and some turns into induced drag and some other things, but this elevator back here, this left elevator, isn't getting as much airflow as it should. Now, the only airflow it's getting is coming right through here. Now let's add flaps to the equation. These flaps come down. They don't really move, but pretend these flaps come down. Where is that directing where I just told you the only airflow I get coming through here is now being directed downward? This back left elevator is now getting nothing in the airflow department. The only elevator that's flying this airplane is right over here. There's nothing happening back here. You follow me with that? That is why it's so dangerous. Can it be done? Absolutely it can be done when the nose is like this and you literally put the elevator up into the wind. The nose has to be so aggressive. But if you're going to slip like this, you're asking for it here. You have to take that tail to get some air flowing over it. That's why they're not crazy about slips with flaps extended. And that'd be a great video idea, John. Let's write that idea down in the near future to really show that and show why. It'd be very interesting. Let me see. Yeah, Pastor Willie, you're spot on. We talked about that. You're absolutely right. I'm not a big fan of flaps in a turn. Hey, John, going from a high wing to a low wing, having trouble with the distance from the runway. What am I missing? Well, you're not missing anything, my friend. It's a different sight picture. Ground effect is different in a high wing versus low wing. What is the definition of ground effect? The definition of ground effect is one wingspan length, right, from the ground. Well, that's different from a high wing to a low wing airplane, right? Because of just how everything is set. I'll set in it a little bit sooner in ground effect in a low wing plane than I will in a high wing plane. It's just a different approach. It's a different sight picture. But the thing is this, the techniques we just talked about all stay the same. It's just figuring out that technique and seeing that sight picture here. Chris said, why do some instructors teach full flap landings? I don't know. It depends on the situation too. Again, I have a 1972 172 Lima. It's 5'9" Quebec now. It's changing to 2-3 Mike Zulu. Going to have a very cool paint job. You're going to love it. More on that soon. But it has 40 degrees of flaps. I can count on one hand how many times I've landed with 40 degrees of flaps because I had to. I mean, I'll do it sometimes for training to demonstrate to a student on how dangerously slow you come in. You're logging like rotorcraft time. You land with power if you're going to come with 40 degrees of flaps. Even 30's a lot. The sweet spot for my airplane is about 20 degrees of flaps. And it's nice because there's no detent. I can just tap it down once, just, just baby them down that way. There's not like a detent where I'm limited to that. Now, the Tecnam is different. The Tecnam, I have takeoff flaps and I have landing flaps, like you would in a Cirrus. There's no in between. That's just what I have. I have takeoff and I have landing with that. So those are the options I have. The Cirrus is that same way. Just have a knob with two, no flaps, takeoff flaps, landing flaps. And those are the options there. So it varies aerodynamically from airplane to airplane. But for example, my Cessna 150 was even worse. It had 40 degrees of flaps and a STOL wing kit. I could cross the numbers at 20 and the stall warning horn wouldn't come on. Like I just had so much lift being generated by that airplane. It was crazy. It was a great short field performer, obviously. You've seen that video of like that carbon cub coming in and just like hovering there, getting that right wind. I mean, the technique, it's good to know how to do it, but it's, if done incorrectly, it can be dangerous. Diane, I have some videos on spins. Matt, would you mind finding that video on spins? I did spins with Ariel Tweedo from Flying Wild Alaska. A good one to watch. So, Louise said, thoughts on the oval 180-degree traffic pattern. I'm going to do a new video on that. I did a video previously in the Tecnam. I'm going to do a new one in the 172 once it's painted. Long story short, I like it. I think there is something there, and I think it's really getting a bad rap from a lot of people who haven't tried it. It's one thing to sit down and write things when you haven't tried it. So I went out there and I said, listen, let's do this. And I didn't have all the data and everything else. I know the concept. I want to try this, and it wasn't bad. I've got a lot more data and just a lot more research that we've done and put into this. And I really believe our next video, we might turn some haters into liking the oval pattern a little bit as well. I think it could be beneficial if used the right way. And we're going to compare both, the standard rectangular pattern and the oval pattern as well. So it could be very, very interesting as well here. Matt, or someone from MzeroA, probably Matt, just posted that. It's the YouTube link right there. So grab that. Spins with Ariel Tweedo. It's a good video. Brendan said, what about ballooning? What about the recovery on there? Matt, next video to find how to recover from a bounced landing. Good video there. Long story short, I bounce. I'm going around. If you look at the NTSB reports, there's accident after accident of people bouncing, trying to save it, and just stalling again and damaging the airplane even more. So how to recover from a bounced landing. Matt will post that one next there for you. Chris with a K, I like that comment there. But yeah, long story short is simply just go around. Matt just posted that link if you guys want to start opening some stuff with some new tabs. So you have some viewing material after we get done here. Let me see. More questions. How about some PAR approaches? Good stuff. Do I ever come to Dothan, Alabama? Trent, no, but I'd love to. We're doing, Ashley and I have a new little one, a little boy coming in April. So my seminar, my speaking schedule is really slowing down up until April, so I can be a good dad with that process. And we'll pick it back up late summer into the fall. We're going to do a pretty aggressive speaking tour. So be watching for that. That being said, too, I don't charge a speaking fee, whatever it may be. If you guys have a location, a great hangar, a great conference room that can, we're talking 100 people or so, though, that we can get out there, because I'll market it and you can market it to your flying club, your EAA chapters. If you have a room or facility that can get 100 people in there, I'd be interested in hearing about it. Just go to MzeroA.com, click support, and let me know about it, because we haven't planned all our stops yet, but we'd love to make that one of the stops. So think about that. Thank you for the congratulations on that, too. We do have an aviation name picked out. Those of you who don't know us yet, we have a very aviation-themed family. The dogs are Pedo and Magneto. The goats are Prop, Rudder, and Strut. And Ella, you can't tell her this, she's 2 now, so she's going to realize here eventually, Ella is really short for Ella Vader. Ella's our 2-year-old. And our son coming along is going to have an aviation theme to it as well. So more on that later, though. Let me see. Colin, I like that. Robbie, no, but I'd love to. Again, email this, guys. All these comments are going so fast on my screen right now, so please email what you're telling me with either your contact information or whoever the person is to contact. That'd be awesome. Sal, I would love that. That's easy for us to get down to. Great stuff. Oh, someone asked about wet runways. Yeah, well, how about just runways that are just out of the norm? Well, it could be contaminated surface, such as wet, but it could be dirt, it could be grass, it could be grass that hasn't been mowed in a few weeks, it could be grass in the morning with the morning dew, it could be grass that's just rained. There's so many factors in here. So what it really comes down to is adjusting that approach. With a wet runway, I know that I'm not going to get the required braking action that I need, right? My approach is going to be essentially the same. Assuming there's a tower there, I'm going to call and say, hey, are there any puddles you can see? Anything I need to worry about hydroplaning-wise? Now, obviously, runways are engineered. Most of them have the grids through them, so they drain real well. They're crusted in the middle at the center line. Important reason to land on center line, right? But over time, that changes. Ruts get in them from airplane after airplane after airplane landing on it. So ask the tower if they have that. Ask other pilots. Ask the FBO on the ground here. Do a low pass. Do some slow flight down the runway and take a look at everything. I do that oftentimes at soft fields going into grass strips anyways. Especially if it's a very remote location, do a flyby just to scare away any animals that may be there and then come back around and land. Little things like that to think about, but just know that the braking action you previously have isn't going to be there. So normally on a wet runway, I'll just kind of let it roll out and kind of do some tactical braking and kind of work the brakes that way. Not locking them up. You can't lock them up. That would be terrible for the situation, but just know you're going to land much longer in that case here. Let me see. Hey, Brian, good to see you up in New York. Thank you, my friend. Brian, we're going to be coming up. We're doing a seminar in New York. I don't have it finalized yet, though, because we're coming up for the AOPA fly-in in Groton, I believe it is, or that area, Connecticut somewhere. So I'm sure you'll be at that one, but we're going to do a seminar in New York on the way. So hope to see you and Christine and everyone out there. That'd be great. Mike says, any reason not to keep a little power all the way down? I found more control. It's not that it's frowned upon. It's a different way to accomplish the same thing. But let me give you a better alternative, because when you're landing with a little power in, you're going to eat up more runway. So you're going to want to go to some cool strips, maybe a little bit shorter, and you're put it down soft, but you're going to use more runway. So instead, what if instead of using 30 degrees of flaps, if your airplane can do it, do 25, or if it has a detent, do 20 and land that way. Your thing is, you're looking for a little more airspeed, and you're finding it's easier to put it in with just a little more power. And there's nothing wrong with the technique. It's just, it could come back to bite you in the long run by doing that. That's the only way you learn how to land. By doing it that way, and you come into a short strip, I mean, that is not a proper short field technique. You're going to need to know how to do it the proper way. If you've got the runway, by all, and you want to grease it in because you have friends on board, and absolutely, that option's there. Even check ride examiners have said, like, hey, don't be afraid to give it a little power. Don't slam me into the ground. Like, I get it, but I don't know if it's a habit I would develop over a long time. It is a tool to have in your flight bag, but it's not a card I'd pull every single time. You understand? Try landing 20 degrees of flaps instead next time and see if that helps you in the same kind of way. Sean, I will post those seminars once they're up. So watch for that. Cool. Excited, guys. Oh, I have two Brians in New England. I was talking to both of you. We can say it that way. I see that. Tyler, as an aspiring pilot who only has one landing from a discovery flight, what would you recommend to prepare better for when I do take a step into train? All I have is a simulator with a joystick. Can someone grab me a private pilot blueprint? I might have given them both to Stacy, Matt. You can look and see. I have a book. Matt is feverishly running to get it, just because I really want to show it to you. I don't know if I have one on the set here. There might be one on Stacy's desk, Matt. It's not that important if you can't find one. The book is the Private Pilot Blueprint. PrivatePilotBlueprint.com. Matt has one, thank you. It's everything I wish someone would have told me don't trip when you come through here. Matt, do you want to make your big webinar debut? Matt's hand, everyone. Give Matt some... The Private Pilot Blueprint. Everything I wish someone would have told me before I started my flight training. This book, we ship them to you. The book is free. All I ask is that you pay shipping and handling. PrivatePilotBlueprint.com. So I believe it was Tyler. The comments get buried, so I apologize for that. The definite roadmap for saving time and money on your flight training, your pilot certificate. How to pick a great flight instructor, how to save time and money. Do I need to do it in a Cessna 150? Do I do it in a 172? Do I need to buy a headset? It answers all these questions. You don't realize going into your training, by the way, who's read the Private Pilot Blueprint and who loved it? If you don't mind chiming in here as well. Thank you for sharing that link. It's so much. It's everything I wish someone would have told me before I actually started my flight training. So many of you don't realize that flight instructors should be working for your money. It's not what happens 99% of the time is you walk into a flight school, they say, oh, John's available today. John's your new flight instructor. You guys go fly and have fun. That's how it works. But you should be interviewing these flight instructors, making sure they work with your schedule, making sure they work with just how you learn. Maybe for me, as you can tell, I'm a big picture guy. I've got a lot of great tips and techniques here, but I'm a big picture guy. If I'm flying with someone who's more of an engineer, they need to know every detail. I'm not always the best guy for someone who needs to know every single little detail. I also talk a lot. I may not jive well with someone else who talks a lot as well in the cockpit. So there's that dynamic in the cockpit that needs to be discussed as well. I list the interview type questions to ask these flight instructors in here as well. Also, look at our Facebook events page. I believe it's Tyler. Or Tim, I can't remember, sorry. Look at our Facebook events page because I'm doing one on getting the most out of your flight training. That's the very last one towards the end of the month. Getting the most out of your flight training. I'm going to cover a lot of the techniques in greater detail in the Private Pilot Blueprint as well. PrivatePilotBlueprint.com, book is free, and we'll ship it out to you. So there's that. What else? Thank you, Kevin, for those kind words. I appreciate that, my friend. Howard, didn't fly for 15 years. Instructors became a different kind of challenge. Yeah, finding instructors is tough. We talk about that in the book as well, man. I mean, we are in a hiring boom right now for aviation. If you're thinking about aviation as a career, you came in at a great time because we cannot create enough pilots to meet the demand that is necessary right now. I have good friends who... I have a good friend who's a flight school owner, designated pilot examiner, making a very good living as a business owner, check ride guy, all the above. Took a job flying for a major airline because they were just the incentives, cash bonuses and stuff, and time off and seniority they were going to give him off the bat. He couldn't pass it up. It is ridiculous. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I have no airline aspirations. But I'm saying I've seen a lot of guys with a lot of skill who deliver a lot of value to aviation that are just getting scooped up into major air carriers. It's hard to keep good CFIs around right now because the airlines are so hungry for pilots. How about CFI after retirement? Tim, absolutely, that's a great idea. As a side gig, most of you guys should be looking for these CFIs who are old retired airline guys and gals just doing a CFI thing part-time because you know they're not sitting in a Delta hiring pool and going to run off on you somewhere. I had 9 different flight instructors for my commercial pilot certificate. There's no way to earn your commercial because this CFI knows I'm good at slow flight, but the next one doesn't know I'm bad at steep turns. That information never gets passed down. I kept doing the same lessons over and over and over and just wasting money. Very, very frustrating situation to find yourself in. So let's see here. Frank said third class medical. Oh man, huge stuff. We just did that video on the third class medical. Basic Med it's called. Now I won't get into it too much. I'm gonna do a webinar, online ground school members, Monday's webinar, change of plans. We're doing it on Basic Med just to really bring you up to speed, on what it's all about. So be watching for that. All good stuff here. Trying to read some. Let's take a, Lisa, I totally agree with that. Make sure you're a member of Women in Aviation. Ashley is, and we'll be at Women in Aviation's Orlando this year. We'll be there. Let's see, it's getting late for us. Let's take a few more here, and then we will wrap this thing on up. What is some advice to help me being scared about my solo? Matt, Fear of Flying Solo video, please. Matt's just got a big smile on his face. He knows where I'm going with all this stuff. We have a great video called Fear of Flying Solo. We kind of talk about things you can do. It's a 6 or 7 minute video, so I won't get into the whole thing here, but just things you can do on working yourself up to that solo cross countries, how to prepare for that, everything else on YouTube. Matt will be posting it here in just a second. Edgar, I'd love to do that, by the way. Just let's set it up. Matt just posted that video if you're curious. Doug, I think you're spot on. He said went through 3 CFIs where he found the one that worked for him, and I totally agree with that, man. It is tough with that. It is very, very tough. Just starting commercial rating, one of the easiest ways to get the maneuvers. Randy, the maneuvers are tough, but the lazy eights, the chandelles, all that stuff that's challenging, it can all be chair flown. It's something you need to, first off, Randy, if you're not in an online ground school, we have an amazing commercial pilot online ground school that we just completed. So groundschoolacademy.com, do consider checking that out and getting that amazing bonus of all this stuff here too, so you have it. Check that out. We have great, not only I show you animations, but I show you inside the cockpit. So I fly the Lazy 8, and then we zoom outside of the airplane to show you the Lazy 8, to actually what we're trying to accomplish. And it hits learning on all these different levels for people, and it really makes them click. And then once you have that foundation, you sit back down like I am, and you close your eyes, and you chair fly through it. Okay, at my 45-degree point, and then this is my maximum pitch, and you just go through everything. You know what you're looking for at each and every point through that Lazy 8. That's what it takes. Commercial pilot is a lot of groundwork. It's a lot of knowledge. That's a hard knowledge test. Instruments the same way. It's a lot of groundwork. Really, everything's a lot of groundwork, but instrument commercial in particular, just you have a foundation, but adding on to it and finding gaps in that foundation you built with private pilot, it's a lot to work up to. Never let anyone tell you the commercial pilot is a glorified private pilot. That is the most incorrect statement someone could say. It is night and day different. It is a very difficult check ride. No, don't let anyone tell you it's a glorified private pilot. It is so much different. It is much more difficult as well. So just mentally, not to psych you out by any means, but just mentally prepare for that as well. You're welcome, Robbie. Thank you. Matt, did you see any other good comments that perhaps I need to grab or anything? Okay, let's look and see if anything else good comes in here. Let me scroll here, see what else is happening. Scrolled too much. Yeah, Pastor Julie, I've thought about that. That may be something I work on. I've been asked about that a lot. A pinch hitter course, something to look at. Randy, thank you, my friend. Dustin says, I struggle with steady right rudder into landing. Yeah, that tendency to land it left of center. We talked about that. Scroll down a few videos, and if you're a ground school member, really go watch last week's webinar on P-factor and left turning tendencies. It talks so much about drifting left of center because we don't have that heavier right foot on landing even. Left turning tendencies are there. Sal, that's awesome. Thank you, my friend. Can't wait to see you at Sun and Fun as well. Let's see here. Robert says, seaplane landing on water. Oh, just earned my seaplane in a Piper Cub. Amazing flying. You want to, geez, a fun way to do a flight review and to make yourself a better pilot? Seaplane flying is the way to do it. you don't realize, like a glassy water, but you think glassy water, like, oh, it's calm, it's beautiful. It's great for fishing and boating and stuff, but coming in, you don't have that depth perception on glassy water where it's just everything's flat and it sneaks up on you like that. It's very interesting. We're gonna have some great videos on seaplane flying coming out here soon, so be watching for that. So, very, very cool stuff. Awesome, awesome. Guys, any other questions of stuff perhaps I missed maybe?